Hi, babes. Welcome to The Pleasure Portal, a podcast for women desiring to embody their fierce, wild, feminine magic, reclaim their deepest soul desires, and unleash the passion, pleasure, and fulfillment they know in their bones is their birthright. I'm your host, Kelsey Grant, a love, intimacy, and relationship educator and pleasure alchemist. I'm curious, has your pleasure ever been on the back burner? Have you ever felt like your pleasure doesn't matter? Have you experienced your feminine power being minimized, ignored, or suppressed? If so, this is the place for you. Because in this podcast, we're writing a whole new story together. We're a community of fierce femmes who are done with the binds of repression. We're the women who desire a pleasurable sex life, sacred connection with ourselves, and intimate partnership with another without having to give up or hide parts of who we are. We're the modern witches who, until now, have had to hide or suppress our sacred gifts. Together, we're unhooking from the binds that mute our greatest expression. We're dialing up that turn-on full tilt. We're creating right relationship with our emotions, our power, our enchantment alchemy, and our womb wisdom. Each episode, I'll bring to you a mix of pleasure alchemy, embodiment education, love, sex, and relationship insights, and ultimately an invitation home to your fierce feminine magic. We are reclaiming it all. Down and in we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pleasure Portal podcast. I know it has been a long while since you have heard from me, since we have dropped new episodes, and I wanted to give you just a quick little update on what happened, what's going on, and what you can expect going forward. So, when I first started the podcast back in, I guess it was the end of 2020, I was just coming through the end of a relationship and reorienting where I was going to land. Like, as every relationship will do, when it ends, you get this period of time where you get to reevaluate the parts of your life that are working really well, the parts of your life that need some upgrading. We get a lot of information from a breakup. And one of the first things that came through after we had broken up was that I wanted to continue on podcasting and that I would obviously not be doing our co-ed podcast anymore, but switching gears into my own. And the first kind of iteration chapter of that has been the Pleasure Portal podcast. And 2021 was a massive initiation into the depths of the feminine principle for me. And, there was a lot of chaos that kicked off 2021 for me, and a lot of being like brought to my knees, not only in my business, but in my life, and really having to go down and in and feel all of the stuff that I didn't want to feel, and listen to the guidance that I'd been getting for a long time that I just didn't want to action on, basically humaning. And I really just was brought to my knees. And one of the things that had come through at the tail end of 2020 was this shifting into more embodiment work, more feminine essence and energy work. And there were some big changes that were going to happen in my business as a result. And I knew that they were coming, but, in true Kelsey fashion, I was like, I have time. I'll do that later. We can do that in like a year from now. And, the thing about the feminine is she doesn't fuck around. She's like, no, bitch, you're doing this now. And we don't have time to waste. Like, the next chapter, the next level is here, and you are going into it. And so there was this huge, restructuring with my business, a program that I'd been running for 8 years. I'd gotten the intuitive download to retire the program. And, like I said, I was going to dawdle when it came to that. And if there hadn't been a push, I probably would have drawn that out for a long time. And instead, there were just a series of things that happened in both my personal and professional life last year that had me really contemplate, do I really want to drag this out, or are we just going to face the initiation and go down and in? And I'm so glad that I faced the initiation and went down and in, because the end result, while it was, a sticky year for me, sitting here a year later and looking back and just in awe of everything that got created last year as a result of listening to that guidance and retiring, a big part of my business that I had been so reliant on. And I really loved, the program that I had been teaching. And it was called A Year of Love. And it was, a small group container where we did relational work every week for a year. But it was really intensive, energetic for me. And, I had to really consider, there are things in my life that I want to do. There are directions that I want to go, and I need to free up space. I need to free up my schedule. I need to free up my life. I need to have a little bit more flexibility with the work that I'm doing. And so I knew that that program had run its time, much like a relationship. Every relationship has an end date. And, a program is a relationship. It is a relationship with me, with my higher self, me with my mission, me with the people that I'm serving in that program or in that container. And so, just like any romantic or non romantic relationship, there will be an end date to that. And I know that that might not be easy to hear because it busts all of our fantasy programming, but it's true. Whether by choice or by death, our relationships are going to end. And when we're not in right relationship with that truth, we cause ourselves a lot of stress, unnecessary stress. And so I just knew that this was, that time. Like we had gone as far as we could go. Me and A Year of Love. And so I began the process of, essentially putting it in the ground. I finished out the containers that I was running, and I had 2 of them that I was running, and I finished out both of them. And gosh, it was just such a beautiful experience to be with the very last groups, and what an honor to have had that time with them. And as that was all kind of churning and I knew that that was coming to a close, like there was this whole new opening of the new direction that I was going to go. And that was correlating at the same time where I was starting to feel the compression of this podcast. And I knew enough to know that that meant something was going to change with the podcast as well. And the first change was simply like, we can't maintain doing the podcast while also creating and birthing all of the new things that are coming with your business. And so last year, I wrote and facilitated a beautiful program called Mutually Met, which is now available as a self-guided journey. And that's the program to start to open those portals of reception and really working with the over-functioning element that we can slip into relationally. And it was just so magical to create that program, facilitate it, and now it lives, as a standalone program. So that was the first thing that came through. And then shortly after, well, I guess I wasn't quite finished teaching Mutually Met yet. And this new embodiment methodology was like, hey, we're ready to be born. And I'm like, okay, this is just the year of giving birth, I suppose. And this new embodiment methodology came through. And that was a result of my training in nonlinear movement. And having done that training earlier in the year and having let it alchemize in my system and really sitting with, do I want to teach nonlinear in the traditional sense? Do I just want to have it for my own personal practice? What do I want to do with it? And I just kept sitting with that contemplation. And one day, as these things happen for me, the clarity came through, the message came through. And this whole embodiment methodology was downloaded into me, and I began offering and teaching those classes, and that's the Embodied Alchemy class and series. And I've been teaching that since the summer, and I just am in so much awe of the magic and the synchronicity and every single thing that has happened that has moved me into the place that I am at today. And teaching the embodied alchemy method was really important, because without an avenue for embodiment, learning all of this relational work or learning all of this pleasure work doesn't really have a place to click in and land. And we also have to consider that there is junk in our emotional trunk that needs to be cleared out, and we need to open those channels so that we are connectable, not only to other people and the people that are most important to us, but connectable to ourselves and our purpose and our mission and our magic in the world. And so this methodology coming through, I'm like, of course, of course, here's another piece to the puzzle. And then the final thing that was birthed last year was the new signature program called Initiated, the Foundations for Relational Mastery. And that's the container where I get to weave in a lot of the lessons and teachings of a year of love, but in a way that really honors people's sovereignty and their pace at which they want to do this work. And it also combines the element of a live practice and having embodiment practice and live mentorship. And so I found a way to merge all of the things that matter, but also in a way that still gave me a lot of spaciousness in my life, because there was this other element of myself that really was ready to step into its fullest expression, and that is my music. And some of you may know this about me, and a lot of you probably don't, is that I have been a musician, an artist, a performer for my entire life. And I've been writing music with my writing partner and my bandmate for the last 5 years. And it just felt like, okay, now is the time. Now is the time to do this seriously and take it seriously. And I really wanted my business to, be set up in a way that was supportive of that, so that I could still do both, because the relational work is such a key aspect of who I fundamentally am. And I don't see myself ever really abandoning that. And I also know that music is such a fundamental part of who I am, and I can no longer keep abandoning that. So this whole last year was the alchemy and the shifting so that I could put all of the places that needed tune up, in the container for a nice little scrub a dub dub, get them all cleaned up. The pieces that were ready to, be retired, they were retired, and opening all of these new portals and avenues to do this work with people that are really ready to walk the path of relational mastery and emotional alchemy. And that's that's why the podcast had to go on pause. And with that said, I have, I think, 7, I think there's 6 or 7 interviews that we recorded last year that were never published. And I am going to continue on with the podcast. It is going to be rebranded. It's a whole new show, new title, new show, new energy. But before we drop the new podcast. I will be releasing those final 7 episodes, and we're going to kind of do them in a binge style. I'm going to release one a day for an entire week, and you can have those, you can listen to them. And in March, I will be launching the new show, and we are going to be going into the realms of love and relationship and life, so that there's more range for me. Like, I don't like being kind of pigeonholed into one area. And so while the Pleasure Portal podcast was an essential step, it also has to be retired, because there's so much more to my magic, to my teachings, than just pleasure. And the relational alchemy, the emotional alchemy, is really where I feel the most anchored and the most alive. And pleasure is such a huge part of that, but it's not the only part. So, in this transforming of the podcast, we are now going into the next version of it, which allows us to step into that fuller range, that fuller capacity. I don't know if we're going to do an episode every week. Probably not. We'll probably start with 1 or 2 a month and see where we go, because I am also doing free transmission talks for my email list and all of my communities. And so, with those, I need to consider my capacity and just be responsible for that. So I will keep you posted when we officially launch in March what the podcast schedule will be. And until then, on February 22nd, you will receive the first episode to listen to, and then the remaining 6 will come one after the other. And then in March, I will announce when I'm officially beginning the season 2 of the new show. I hope you'll stick around. I'm really excited to be on this next chapter of the journey with you. And I will talk to you all very, very soon. I love you. Bye, friends.